Welcome, Leo Lions. This is Mrs. Morgan. Today's lesson is over 1-1 in our textbook, variables and expressions. So if you notice in Shobi, I have two documents here. The first one, we're going to talk about some definitions and some examples. So first of all, what is a variable? Hopefully we know by now that a variable is simply a letter used to represent an unknown number. So a letter used to represent a number that we don't know. And you can use any letter in the alphabet, it doesn't matter. Be careful, some of your homework questions do have you use a specific letter, but you can use A, B, C, Z, Y, whatever you want, but it's represented, or it's used to represent something that we have no clue, okay? A number that we don't know about. So an expression, remember that there's a difference between an expression and an equation. An expression does not have an equal sign. However, an expression does have numbers. It could have just one, so I'm going to say number or numbers. It's going to have variables, again, could have one or more than one. And then it also has operations, so adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. All right, there's two different types of expressions. There's an algebraic expression and then there's a numerical expression. Numerical expressions only have numbers, numerical, nothing else, okay, in operations. But an algebraic will include a variable, and that's what we're going to be working with today. So an example of that would be something like 6x plus 2. It has a variable, numbers, operation, but no equal sign. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're actually going to be writing expressions from these word phrases. So product, we're going to talk about some keywords in that other document. Product means multiply. So the product of 6 and a number. A number, this is where we can use whatever variable we want. Okay. Let's use the variable x, and instead of writing the x here, I'm going to try and keep it consistent with your homework. I'm going to put multiply so you don't get confused between those two. When we multiply things, we're going to squeeze them right next to each other. So 6 times x, we can write as 6x, okay? And that translates that phrase into that expression. The sum, so sum is a key word for, we know that means add, of 13, and twice a number. Here it does tell us our variable x. Twice means 2 times that number. So we'll have to do 2 times that number and then add 13. So 2x, I'm going to squeeze them right next to each other, plus 13. Okay, with addition, we can write them either way, so we could say 13 plus 2x, it's the same thing, but usually we always put the coefficient variable first and then constant last. Okay, next one, 9 less than means that we are going to be subtracting. We're going to make it smaller. So 9 less than the quotient. So quotient is our keyword for divide. And we're going to divide z, that's our unknown, and 8. When we do division, we're going to write them as fractions. So our division is going to be z and 8. Whatever number comes first, that's what goes on top of our fraction, or first in our division. 9 less than means that we are taking it out of. So usually we write expressions in the order they come, but this less than is a key phrase that it's going to come out of the z divided by 8. And with subtraction, we have to get them in the right order, okay? On the next page, when we talk about some of these key words, I'll star these so that you know that the order has to switch. So 8, 9, oh sorry, I wrote 8. That should be 9. 9 less than the quotient of z and 8. okay? Last one, the cube. So we know that this is the third power, all right? Squared is the second power, cubed is the third power of twice a number. So twice a number we already talked about, that's 2 times. Again, I'm just going to use a common variable of x. So twice a number, and it says the cube of this. So we're going to take this twice a number and raise it to the third power. Okay, so those are some examples that kind of is similar to what your homework looks like. Let's go to that other document and think of some words for all of these operations. So addition, we can go back to the basics here. If you would like, these notes are totally up to you, but they do have some fun kind of doodle notes to them if you want. Go back to the basics from elementary, something simple like plus, added by, increased by, more than, so 6 more than x. And then also I'm going to put that last sum, meaning the answer to an addition problem. So there's some addition words. Let's go to subtraction. Again, think back to some of your basic elementary words, something like minus, subtracted by, minus, subtracted by, decreased by. Now the 2 phrases that will switch the order, I'm going to star them. So we talked about in that last example, less than. When we see that, order switches. And then when we say subtract, and the key word here is from, that means it's coming out of whatever is said last in that statement. So these 2 phrases, you're going to switch the order of the subtraction, okay? And then the last one I'm going to use is the difference. That's our answer to a subtraction problem. All right. Multiply. Let's go down here. So multiply, we have times. If we see that multiplication word, multiplied by, we saw in the last examples that product, I'm going to write product down here. So always our last word is the answer to that problem. So the answer to multiplication. Times, we said twice. So that means 2 times a number. Per is a good one from story problems. Of, we've talked about, always means multiply. Groups of. So all of these we're using, if we're seeing a story problem, we need to translate it into an expression or an equation, okay? And we'll do equations later on. Let's do division. So we've got divided by, quotient, split up, divided by, split up. If you cut things up, that's the same thing as splitting things up. And then I'm going to use that quotient as our last one, the answer to a division problem. Okay? Let's do exponents. So exponents, we already talked about those squared and cubed. So squared is the second power, cubed is to the third power. Everything else after that will be to the power of, so to the 4th power, to the 5th power, to the 6th power, so on, okay? Now, there will be scenarios where we have, let me see, I was trying to find a color I hadn't used yet, and I don't, we'll use red here. Parentheses come along when we have more than one operation happening. So parentheses are for compound word expressions. And this is going to signify, we have 2 or more operations in it. okay? So if we see the sum of, and this was in some of our examples on that last page, the difference of, so the same thing. And then the quantity. If you see these, we know we need to have parentheses, and there's probably going to be a second operation happening. So for example, on that last page, the sum of 13 and twice a number, so we knew it was going to be a compound. We knew there's going to be more than one operation. The cube of, anytime you see that of, you know there's going to be more than one thing happening, okay? Thank you for listening. That concludes our lesson over